Today on Investigate TV Plus, millions of dollars in goods stolen before they even reach store shelves.
It's organized crime at the highest.
As thieves target cargo and brazen heists, we examine the challenges law enforcement face in cracking down on this crime and how it can end up costing you.
Plus, when hackers hold a company's computer system hostage, an emerging field of experts step in.
We've seen ransoms that range from a couple thousands of dollars to millions of dollars.
We reveal how ransomware negotiators help businesses take on cyber criminals and protect your data.
Then, a historic haul gets a second act.
This was the pulse of the community. You could come here and get help. You could come here and have a great time.
We take you to a performance venue known for much more than its music.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus.
It's a nearly $80 billion business that drives commerce across the country, but industry leaders and law enforcement say it's under attack. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Our investigation has uncovered cargo trains are a growing target for brazen criminals looking to cash in on stolen merchandise.
It doesn't take very long to be able to make quite a bit of money.
Bunch of shoes, bunch.
Just one example, in early 2025, when authorities say thieves made off with $200,000 worth of unreleased Nike shoes. It happened in Coconino County, Arizona, and according to the sheriff there, it's highly orchestrated.
This is a planned event for them. They know the area well, it's been scouted out, and they're able to come up with several different areas of escape. So really, they have the advantage.
That's why Sheriff Brett Axelin says this kind of organized crime puts his deputies and the community in danger.
They're very desperate, where we had a detective that was shot at.
And we found the thefts don't just compromise safety, they have a financial cost that can add up for you.
Investigative reporter Josie Sturman explains how and reveals why there's little being done at the federal level to coordinate enforcement and stop the crimes.
Setting off sparks, grinding locks to gain access to trains, and slashing brakes, risking derailments.
It's organized crime at the highest.
Rail bandits ready for battle, armed with assault weapons.
When you see something that brazen, how do you react to it?
Well, I think it's terrifying, and it's greatly concerning.
These are not the train robbers you remember from old-timey westerns. These are sophisticated, high-stakes cargo thefts, disrupting rail and putting lives at risk.
This is a dangerous business.
An illegal enterprise that experts say is accelerating, with a 40% jump in cargo theft in 2024 alone.
It is an economic issue. It is a supply chain issue, but this is a human issue too.
And it's not just a problem for rail. Organized multinational crime rings are also targeting commercial trucking.
Police department, if anybody's inside, let us know.
Our national investigative team filed records requests across the country, obtaining police body camera footage, photographs, incident reports, and court files from cargo thefts involving trucks and trains.
Well, they took almost everything. Yeah.
We discovered police footage that shows thieves snagged thousands of dollars in Beats earbuds from this truck hijacked from an Arizona truck stop. Pictures that detail a ransacked tractor trailer in Colorado, picked clean of more than $1 million worth of Nintendo gaming consoles. Court records that outline a cargo theft spree across Georgia and Virginia, netting robbers nearly $2 million in copper and electronics. Evidence videos from a case outside Phoenix that capture brazen thieves taking selfies, dressed in tactical gear and carrying what looks like a grenade launcher. And one incident report that details shots fired near a conductor in a Memphis rail yard as boxcars full of Nikes were broken into. Another burglary in that city captured on surveillance cameras. Thieves stopping their efforts just long enough to punch a defending truck driver right in the face.
I think that our industry has been shy about talking about cargo theft because nobody wants to know that their cargo, their freight, their truck got hit.
Chris Spear, president and CEO of the American Trucking Associations, says he can't afford to be silent anymore. Neither can his main competition in transportation, Ian Jeffries, who leads the Association of American Railroads.
Historically, we may have worked in parallel, but not necessarily arm in arm, and we've taken a new tack this time around.
moving together to try to crack down on a crime that experts tell us is often handled as either an insurance claim or a one-off criminal case at the local or state level. Our team did find dozens of cargo theft cases prosecuted by the feds, though. But we discovered there's a massive hole in the net for catching cargo thieves, because while the FBI does lead some regional task forces and tracks voluntarily submitted data, there's no specific nationwide coordination on cases at the federal level.
It's something that goes well beyond most companies' ability to combat, which is really why we need stronger leadership by the federal government in coordination with the state and local governments.
I think a lack of coordinated, consistent, and centralized data is absolutely contributing to identifying what is a much larger issue across the entire supply chain.
Both the rail and trucking industries believe a piece of legislation in Congress can help, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act, or CORCA. It would create a national coordination center within Homeland Security to deal with cargo theft.
It has to be one of those things where you attack it as a whole versus going at it in a piecemeal fashion.
Representative Dave Joyce, a former prosecutor, sponsors the House bill. He says that proposed coordination center would share information between industry and law enforcement at every level, track trends, and provide new tools to investigate and prosecute cargo theft cases.
When you see it in community by community, you realize that this is a tidal wave that's going to hit the country because we're not looking at all the things that are bubbling up to create the wave.
A wave that could potentially leave trucks and trains vulnerable to cargo thieves who see a clear path straight to the bank.
While there's widespread support from major stakeholders in support of CORCA, similar bills have failed in recent years.
If this legislation is not successful, what sort of message does it send to the criminals who were engaged in this type of crime?
Katie, bar the door. I mean, seriously, I think there is absolutely no resistance that our trucks are for the picking, so is rail.
According to FBI data, in 2024 alone, there were nearly 6,000 commercial cargo theft incidents across the country, with stolen property valued at more than $150 million. But that's based on voluntary reporting, and experts tell us the totals are likely much higher.
Still ahead, one neighborhood transforms brush into a blossoming garden.
When we adopted the garden 3 years ago, there was literally trees in here.
How a woman is changing more than just the landscape in a city neighborhood.
But first, a growing expertise.
They're holding systems hostage. They're holding information hostage. They're, attempting to extort people in order to monetize their efforts.
We explore how ransomware negotiators help protect your personal information.
You can watch Investigate TV Plus anytime online. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel at Investigate TV. You can catch stories and full episodes.
In the city of Las Vegas, casinos are king.
But for an industry that never sleeps, a cyber attack forced some online systems to come to a screeching halt, impacting customers at the slots and hotels.
This is the world's longest check-in line.
In September 2023, MGM Resorts was targeted by a ransomware attack.
It's a type of cybercrime that prevents companies from accessing computer files and demands a ransom for their return. According to documents filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, MGM reported an estimated $100 million loss from the attack. The filing also stated some customers' personal data was compromised.
Ransomware attacks like these have created an emerging job in cybersecurity: ransomware negotiators.
Reporter Jason Barry spoke with one negotiator about how he works with businesses and cyber criminals to protect your data.
Danny Seiden is the president of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, so he knows firsthand the threat businesses face when it comes to cyber attacks.
Cyber attacks in Arizona have been costing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. And a lot of times you don't know when those costs will stop.
Arizona currently ranks 8th in the country in cyber crimes, with school districts, hospitals, large and small businesses targeted. One of the biggest challenges companies face right now is from ransomware, which cyber criminals use to gain access and encrypt someone's system so it's no longer usable. Cyber criminals will then try to extort payment from their victims to release the data.
With modern ransomware, you've got a lot of different groups.
Mark Lance is a ransomware negotiator with GuidePoint Security in Virginia.
They're holding systems hostage. They're holding information hostage. They're, attempting to extort people in order to monetize their efforts.
Lance tells us businesses hit with ransomware will hire him to step in and negotiate with the cyber criminals to work out the payment and terms to set their systems free. He says most company officials have no idea what to do when they're attacked.
We've worked hundreds of cases where we're working on behalf of these victims. And what we bring is, the ability to set expectations on what's going to transpire, but also educate them on what is potentially going on situationally. They're trying to create operational disturbances that will prevent you from being able to continue to run it as a business where you need to pay them to get access back to these systems.
According to Lance, most ransomware attacks come from cyber criminals in Eastern Europe, with a handful of gangs working from the UK, South America, and the US. Ransom demands can range from a few $1,000s to several million. One cyber criminal asked for $700 million.
These are extremely lucrative operations for them, where they're making millions and in some cases even billions of dollars on an annual basis.
But even better advice is for businesses to make sure they have a strong security system in place to prevent hackers from getting in.
We have seen businesses that have had to close their door or shutter their business because of the impacts.
According to cybersecurity company Deep Strike, between 2024 and 25, the typical ransom companies would pay dropped by half, from $2 million to $1 million. It attributes that drop to smarter negotiations and businesses simply refusing to pay the ransom. In fact, the FBI says it does not support paying a ransom because paying doesn't guarantee the organization will get any data back, and it encourages perpetrators to target more victims.
Still ahead, we take you to a space where famous musicians helped shape music as we know it today.
If James Brown was here, you had a chance to go up, have dinner with them, maybe even meet his entire band.
How the historic building also provided a safe haven for families.
Plus, a woman's dedication to feeding her neighbors blossoms into a community garden.
They have over 200 people come through the doors every day, and we have one rack of vegetables that, disappears really quickly.
We take a tour of the plots feeding families in need.
Our in-depth coverage continues. You can get connected to Investigate TV Plus on all social media platforms.
The food we put on our plates has a lasting impact on our health.
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can reduce the risk of many illnesses, including type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and some cancers. Yet, according to the CDC, just 1 in 10 adults eats the recommended amount of fruits or vegetables.
Kelly Holmesley is a registered dietitian with Novant Health in Charlotte, North Carolina. She offers this strategy for getting a healthy and balanced diet.
You want to shop in the perimeter of the grocery store, so that's going to be your fresh fruits and vegetables, your meat, your eggs, your cheeses. That's what you want the majority of your diet and the majority of your grocery cart to come from.
A Michigan woman helps educate her neighbors about getting enough fruits and vegetables by planting them herself.
Reporter David Andrews shows us how she's cultivating more than just a community garden.
It's been kind of fun.
Mary Cedarland is overjoyed about okra.
This is okra.
Yeah. I don't know if we can find one in there.
Pumped about eggplant.
Yeah, they're huge.
Gushes over garlic.
Garlic does wonderfully out here.
And raves about the rhubarb.
Rhubarb is one of my favorite plants.
Yeah. She's equally fond of all the onions, cabbage, broccoli, peppers, lettuce, and tomatoes.
Yeah, this is going to be our best harvest ever.
But none of it will go on Mary's table.
So this is the community garden.
It's the Crystal Ray Community Garden, right behind the Crystal Ray Community Center in North Lansing.
When we adopted the garden 3 years ago, there was literally trees in here.
But after a lot of cleaning up and building up,
you see these raised beds here. None of these existed.
And with Mary's cultivating care,
I do like gardening.
the Cristo Rey Community Garden is now thriving.
About 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah.
Under your guidance?
Well, yeah, God's guidance.
Mary says it's been her calling to help hydrate Lansing's urban desert.
Where there's just not a lot of fresh food in the inner city.
The neighborhoods in need around Cristo Rey Community Center is where she found her planting purpose.
More tomatoes. Yeah, lots of tomatoes.
Producing free produce for those who would normally go without.
They have over 200 people come through the doors every day. And we have one rack of vegetables that, disappears really quickly.
Mary is quick to point out she does have horticulture help.
This is my lead volunteer, John.
John Armstrong has his hands in the community garden dirt most every day.
The one that is part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So move around a lot of plants in there.
John's homeless and he comes out here and just wants to do something. And I think there are a lot of people that, want to do that.
Including people from the corporate community who show up here on Mondays.
But they're very delicate. So
they are delicate. They are delicate.
On this day, it's the volunteer crew from Delta Dental.
Trim them down. These shoots will come back.
This garden is her classroom, and the goodwill she teaches is ripe for the picking.
We harvested this basil on Monday, and this woman came in with 4 kids, and she had a whole bucket of it. And I wasn't sure what she was going to do with all that basil, but her son, all of 5 years old, was carrying it out, and I go, that's why we do this, is to feed the poor.
In Richmond, Virginia, one woman saw a need for healthy options in her neighborhood and drew inspiration from her heritage.
Patience Fielding owns Esther Manor Farm, where she grows vegetables native to West Africa, including waterleaf, jama jama, and bitterleaf. The plants carry a high nutritional value and a long history of medicinal use.
It's a gift that keeps giving.
Fielding says the produce she grows is hard to come by.
You wouldn't find them in mainstream stores.
She says seeing people struggling during the pandemic is what inspired her to start the farm.
I was thinking, what can I do? Because with the food shortage, how can I help? And so I started giving out the produce to my community, and they didn't believe me. They're like, no way, you're not a farmer, you're lying.
Today, she continues to feed her community and educate others about native African plants.
This is new in America. I want to make it accessible to people and teach them ways they can incorporate that in their diets.
Still ahead, a structure that once served as a safe place for struggling families is now in need of saving.
These organizations supported families. If you had a baby, if the house burned down, they would come to the aid. These men were carpenters, brick masons.
We show you the history inside True Friends Hall and the plans for its future. In an era when Black Americans were forced to sit in the back of buses and banned from whites-only establishments, creative spaces for Black people by Black people were in full swing.
The Chitlin Circuit was a network of performance venues across the U.S. Black musicians, comedians, and other entertainers during racial segregation had places to perform.
Producing artists such as Aretha Franklin, B.B. King, and Little Richard, the Chitlin Circuit helped shape American music, creating new genres such as blues, jazz, and rock and roll.
The Chitlin Circuit also served as a safe haven for struggling Black families during Jim Crow.
Reporter Tan Trung takes us to a stop in Louisiana to show us how one museum is honoring that history with a major restoration project.
On these 2 blocks in Donaldsonville, you'll find plenty of history. There's the River Road African American Museum, which co-founder Darrell Hambrick says preserves the many contributions African Americans have made to the river parishes. Getting the museum here, he says, was a heavy lift.
We spent 26 years restoring the Rosenwald School, which was brought across the river, cut in half, and then placed on the property where you see it.
Hambrick and the museum are now setting their sight on a building just around the corner, the True Friends Hall. Built in the late 1800s, Hambrick says the benevolent society that ran the hall helped serve the local Black community in many ways.
These organizations supported families. If you had a baby, if the house burned down, they would come to the aid. These men were carpenters, brick masons.
During segregation, Hambrick says True Friends Hall was a place where black families could gather and celebrate. This is a photo of neighbors at an Easter event in 1955.
This was the pulse of the community. You could come here and get help. You could come here and have a great time.
Back in the day, True Friends Hall was a musical destination for many black musicians and performers, like New Orleans legends Fats Domino and Irma Thomas, but also for megastars like James Brown.
If James Brown was here, you had a chance to go up, have dinner with them, maybe even meet his entire band.
Hambrick says the hall was part of what was known as the Chitlin Circuit. Because African Americans were not allowed at certain venues, Hambrick says True Friends Hall was a welcoming refuge for black performers.
Making their way into New Orleans. You couldn't stay in hotels, restaurants. Here at True Friends, you got a meal, you got a place to stay, and you had a great time.
The hall went downhill after closing in the 1980s. But after receiving $1.3 million from the state of Louisiana, Hambrick and the museum are now working on a major restoration. Plans call for a performance stage, offices, and space for a music academy. They're in need of more funding. As for the timeline, Hambrick expects it'll be much quicker than the years it took to bring the museum to the city.
I hope it doesn't take 26 years to do this building, because I don't have 26 years.
True Friends is believed to be the largest and oldest existing benevolent hall still standing in Louisiana. With help from its true friends from around the corner, its future may be as vibrant as its past.
Could you imagine being able to go and see James Brown and sit there and have dinner with him? So much history.
Right up next to him, yeah. So much history in that building.
Can't wait to see what it looks like when it's done.
No doubt. That's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching. On the next Investigate TV Plus,
a child can drown in a toilet.
Yes.
Do you think most people know that?
Probably not.
unknown dangers in your home could put young lives at risk.
90% of all accidents to children happen in the home, and 90% of those are preventable.
We step inside the unique house, arming parents with the tools to protect their children.